You know, our revenues come from a lot of different places, and when we look at the revenue budgets, and she sent these to y'all on email, about 4 different emails, at least for me. One of them, the very first one, if you look at the top of your pages, it'll show account numbers up at the top, and the county general is account fund and account 1,000, and then through 1,000. But that's kind of the base account, our main county general account. And then when you look at the pages of the worksheet that she's given us, she showed what our revenues were for 2017, what they were for 2018, what they are year-to-date as of 7/31, July 31, not August, July 31. Then the fourth column shows what our budget is for the 2019 budget. And then the 2020 request is the very far right column, the very far right line. And when we say request, that doesn't mean that Tom's come in and requested these revenue numbers, or Judge Nelson has come in and requested these revenue numbers. It's a computer generated deal that Kelly tweaks for us, or Peggy tweaks for us, or I tweak, that we look through. And Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, but generally it'll take kind of the average of where we're at as of 7/31, consider that 7 months, and then project it out for like 12 months for the most
It can
part.
do that, but that's not, it can do that.
But that's not what you've done.
Well, I did a lot of that by hand and then put it in there.
Did you?
Mhm. Because like we were talking about, I used Peggy's numbers. We're on 2 totally different systems. So I used Peggy's numbers because they are through August 31st. But Peggy's numbers aren't in my system, so I couldn't do what you're talking about.
Okay.
So I had to do it by hand and then put numbers in there.
But basically the theory is you took the numbers and averaged out by the month and then multiplied that.
For a lot of them, but I mean, there's so many different exceptions. There's some that we don't get a lot of revenue till the end of the year.
Yeah,
You don't
taxes and,
Right.
you know, certain things like that.
You and Peggy are though eventually going to get onto the same system, right? That's where you're kind of working
Mhm.
toward.
That's that new software that we were talking about that would really make them talk well together,
But, yeah.
communicate together, make it much, much simpler. You know, we can put anything in the revenue numbers that we want. And we can guess low and be really, really conservative. We can guess high and be really, really liberal about it. But our best is to be as accurate as we possibly can. And, you know, I've seen those years where we had to blow them up just a little bit just to be able to make budget. When we project our revenues, we can project a total dollar amount that we expect, but then we can only budget, remember, 90% of that, except for a few exceptions. So, but once we get that 90% done, we can also add in our CDs, and that counts as revenue. And so for the years that the hospital kind of set us back, we had no CDs to add in. And so that's when we were having to be as generous with our revenue projections as we could possibly be, just to make a budget work. So we've got a little bit of breathing room that we haven't had in years past, these last couple of budgets. And I think we should be able to make a pretty good budget this year and meet all the county's needs that we want to. I don't expect to take a whole lot of time going through these, every single line item. If you start on page 1 of the 1,000, just the county general, just for a real good example, the state general revenues in 2017 was 198,977, say 199,000. They dropped 20,000 for 2018 down to 177,000. For our budget, we only projected 169,000. We're currently at about 166, so we'll beat that 169. But in our projected request, Kelly's put in about 195,000. So you know, when you come down to the total of state aid, we're looking at, 791,000, projected revenues.
That may be beyond my abilities at the
Includes, you real brave. Administration of justice, etc. If you go on down on that first page into property taxes and look at local property taxes, and kind of, there's, you know, a few thousand numbers that we can go through on each one of these, but when it comes down to the bottom line on our property tax page, 12/31 of 17, it was 3.9 million. 2018, 4.45 million. And Kelly's projected in there 4.4 million for the 2020 budget. Basically the same thing on sales taxes. We just kind of pretty well carried that straight across. Kelly? Chime in just any time here as we kind of go through some of these. Is there any real highlights that you want us to take a peek at, or that we need to note that you were concerned about?
Well, just when you look at the revised budget for the county general, you know, that is 90%. So we, you know, when you were talking about the state aid or whatever, it was 169. It looks low, but we had to shave off 10%, you know. So.
Yeah.
But I think that some of these, especially the special revenue funds, can be looked at more closely when I'm working with that elected official or that supervisor on the expenditure side.
One thing that I did want to ask about on page 3 of this particular one, assessor's salary and expense, 1,000.8601. In 2017, we showed 9,500.
Well, it just went into a different line is what it was.
Is that what it was?
Peggy has control of those revenue numbers and.
I was trying to remember, there was something about that. In 2018, we actually moved it over to that line item, it's 627. You know, from less than 10,000 over 600,000.
Yeah, it's just not a good reading because of the account number. Also, there was one year where we didn't put it in until January. That, I don't think that's that line item, but that has happened.
I think that's what happened to us with that one too on 2017. I don't think it ever got put in until we carried it over, didn't think it was gonna hurt, and then figured out, oh, it did hurt though.
Yeah, excuse the numbers, you know. A little
Yeah.
bit,
Made us look a little iffy. Most of the rest of this particular section is just like the schools, transfers, et cetera, that end up being zeros. If you go to the next section, which shows account 1002 through 3009, that particular group of revenues includes the county roads, county library, and county landfill, among others. County road funds on page 5 of that particular handout. And again, same kind of scenario. State aid in that was 1.975 in 17, 2 million in 18, and we're right below 2 million in our 2020 request for this next season. 2020 budget, property taxes, I mean, just within dollars almost of 2017 and 2018 at 1.1 million. You get various transfers in and out. Of the road fund. And Judge, I don't know if you've had an opportunity to look at your road fund revenues.
I haven't yet.
It's not a big deal. I mean, they're pretty consistent going across from what we've done in the past. Treasurer's Automation Fund, Collector Automation Fund, you know, those are small numbers. We're just carrying them straight across. One account that I do want to pay a little closer attention to, guys, in this budget process is going to be the circuit clerk's office and their revenues matched against their expenditures. And when we get to her budget later on in the expenditures, I've got quite a bit of information to share with everybody, how we compare with other counties. Landfills are on this same section. Landfill fees, page 15 of this. In 2017, we collected 3.7 million in landfill fees. In 2018, just under 3.5 million. Requested 2020 budget request right at 3.6 million. So it's right in between the 2017 to 2018 numbers. And all I'm doing is going through and hitting the highlights so that y'all kind of know what you're looking at and what to look for. Something that you may not have noticed in the past is in the next section of the expenditures that she sent to us. Accounts 3012 through 3405. The auditors, bless their hearts, isn't that the polite term in the South? Get on us occasionally because of budgets that we have no control over, but they expect us to at least track. And one of those is the hospital, and the other one's the library. And, you know, we don't set those budgets, but it's kind of a pass-through type thing. The hospital budget is on page 15. I think it's significant to note that on the local sales tax, in the middle of page 15, 3,400.7301 local sales tax. You know, that's that half-cent sales tax that we've been collecting over the last several years. Truly for the support of the hospital. That is now going to help fund our renovation project for the courthouse. So these numbers are going to change a little bit. We don't have anything projected out there. In 2017, we collected 3.152 million. In 2018, we collected 3.313 million. Well, for 2019, we'd have been right along that same line, but now then we're already beginning to, have we started that tax split, or is that start?
We have, but it's not gonna show a whole lot of difference until they start holding out right now I think they're just holding out the interest.
Is that all? Oh, that's right, they did that for the hospitals.
And then they'll start, I think in January, holding out for the payment, maybe December. But anyway, so then is when you're gonna notice the big.
And that's when we'll have to actually make the change. And basically, they'll get 2/3. Basically, they'll get 2 million of that revenue, and we'll get 1 million. And that's being real basic, but they might get 2.1 million. Our payments are projected to be just slightly less than $1 million, like 986,000. And we make our payment first, and after we make our payment, everything else goes to the hospitals, as per our agreement with them. So those numbers will change when we get there. The senior citizens is on page 16 and 17, right at the very next page. In looking at the senior citizens, account number 31, and it's page 16 of that particular printout, shows you really where a lot of their funding comes from. The state senior citizen funding at $89,310. The USDA funding at $61,000. A cigarette tax right at $39,000. I'm looking at the 2017 numbers. Title 111B transportation, $13,000. Title 3B socialization, $21,000. Title 3C2 home delivery, $39,000. But it shows you the various places that senior citizens have to get their money. And if you get down to the page 17, we're providing with our county match monies, monthly support from county general fund, between 35 and 40% of their entire budget, of their total revenues. Every year we get questions about the expenditures and should we cut them, should we up them, should we support them, and I'm sure that they'll hit us up pretty good this year about what they need and how much money they have to stay functioning. But personal opinion, senior citizens is one of the most important projects that we fund outside of just county specific county services. And they service so many people in the county, particularly with their Meals on Wheels. But to understand where their money is coming from, I think everybody ought to look at what the senior citizens' projections are and how we come up with those. Last but not least, in the handouts that she gave us, accounts 3406 through 4802. And I know I'm flying through these, but we haven't got permanent numbers yet, and I'm just trying to help give you some highlights of what to look at and an idea of how we come through this process. This contains, this section 3406 through 4802 includes, not limited to, but includes economic development and our county jail operation and maintenance fund. Economic development is on page 6. It's got the same half-cent sales tax that we were talking about with the hospital a minute ago, so it's collecting a little over $3 million a year. And it's not going anywhere but into the economic development fund. It's not committed to anything else, and it's staying right on track. Expenditures will be simply meeting the commitments that we've made and projecting any new commitments that might come up. The county jail, one thing I didn't know, I'm going to back up just a second. On page 8, right behind economic development, page 8, 3418.7901, landfill sales tax. That surprised me how much sales tax we collect out at the landfill. $209,000 in 2017, $157,000 in 2018 just in sales tax out at the landfill. I just thought that was worth noting. Jail operation and maintenance fund. This is one of our biggies and fun things. We'll have to work real close with the sheriff in looking at. Of course, we do have a local sales tax that helps support the jail. Remember when we built the jail, if you're old enough, when we built the jail, we had a 1 cent sales tax that helped build the jail. But then we sunset 3/4 of it and we kept 1/4 of it. So on local sales tax, you're seeing that 1/4 of a cent that was to help with the maintenance and operation of the jail. We had a jail, the old jail, that the state was shutting us down. We were building a much bigger jail, and we knew at that time that it was going to take more money to operate that big jail. So if Judge Nelson was on the court with me back then, if I'm not mistaken.
I remember the day that we discussed taking that off.
And I wished we'd kept a half of that instead of 1/4.
We'd be in a different situation.
It wouldn't hurt quite so bad. You're exactly right. But it's dragging in about $1.6 million, and we're projecting the same for that. That does not run the jail. When we get into the expenditures, you're going to see nearly a $4 million jail budget. So that, yes, it helps. 1.6 million definitely helps, but it does not fix it. State jail fees, been paying us $28 for their state prisoners. 2017, that was $136,000, and in 2018, it was $212,000. Right now, we're almost $200,000 for this year. Almost. They're paying a little better as part of that, instead of carrying so much of it over. Kelly's socked in $250,000 right now that we're just hoping to get. But if you go on down that jail fee column and look, next to the last down there, jail fees liable, for the 2018, it's showing right at $1 million. Well, that's a skewed number if you'll remember, because we prevailed in that lawsuit and they paid us a $900,000 lump sum. That's also a reason that you'll see in transfers that we didn't transfer near the money last year that we've had to in previous years and in this year. So how much jail fees is Bible going to pay this next year? In 2020, we plugged in about $119,000. It's to be seen. Year to date, is that through August, I guess? Or is that
July.
Through July? A little less than $75,000. So $119,000, probably not very far off. Next page on the county jail, we're back to the transfers from county general. In 2017, we transferred a 1.24, almost $1.25 million out of county general over to help run the county jail. Judge, one of our last budgets in that old jail was a $600,000 annual budget that we had to transfer out of county general. We're more than double that now, even with the sales tax that we keep.
Yeah.
So, if we collect $1.6 million in sales tax, and we supplement that with $1.2 million, that's almost $3 million right there. And then the jail fees, and we still don't have enough money.
Did you not just say a while ago, we're looking at $4 million? Because you threw me off.
It'll be between 3 and
You're
4
talking
million.
3 million with the 1.2 and the 1.6?
1.6 and 1.2. That's 2.8. And then the jail fees and stuff, it'll be between 3 and 4
Okay.
million dollars. It'll be something slightly north of 3 million.
Then you're adding the jail fees into that, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's, gosh, if you look at the jail fees over there, 150,000, 354,000 that we're thinking maybe between the state and the cities.
I've spoken with some of our legislatures and they're talking about going up on that. Possibly to $41.
Really, that would be a help. That would truly be a help. It's not gonna take any pressure off of us, but it would sure help make some payments.
So we're actually providing about 50% or so
Real close, yes.
out of general.
Yeah, if you look at the, at that last page again, Act 1188 monies, right at $100,000. Then we transfer a little bit out of the communication fund, another $22,000.
Michael, you know what I've been curious about, if we treated that as a separate entity and the county were to pay into it, just like the cities did,
Yes, sir.
I wonder what our portion would be.
Never thought of, I looked at it like that.
Because, you know, if you were to put apples to apples,
That, like with the county was paying its own jail fees.
right, then I think we get a truer number.
I think Rick has been trying to do that, Justice Ash. I think he really has those numbers. And he wasn't looking at it exactly like that. He was trying to get a true cost of prisoner per day fees.
Right, but once you
Operating.
found that out, I think you'd get a truer number of what the subsidy was.
Isn't that what Rick was trying to kind of work out and work on?
You did the same thing, didn't you?
Yeah, we looked at it, yeah.
And I think we've had some difficulties actually finding those numbers. It's been my suggestion that maybe we employ an accounting firm, a CPA that might be able to come in and access those records and give us some feedback on how they view that from an accounting standpoint.
I think Rick's approach was taking all the cost of running and operating the jail and then getting the total number of prisoner days.
Yeah.
Didn't matter if they were state prisoners, county prisoners, city prisoners, getting the total number of prisoner days and then using that to divide into the total operating, the $3.2 million.
But it is, and I've looked at it, it's there's a whole lot of ins and outs to this.
Oh, there's a bunch. Yeah, it's true.
And I think maybe and this is just a suggestion that we consider it. It would certainly expedite things and may give us a truer picture to look at.
Well, and when you compared it to some of the other counties, you realize that you weren't always comparing apples to apples. You know, what they would sometimes put in their prisoner per day was not necessarily what others would put in their per day expense. So some would include medical expense, some wouldn't include a medical expense. It was a variety of different, so it was very hard to kind of get a
To get
comparison.
an apple-to-apple comparison between us and other counties.
Right.
Or the state,
That's
between
right.
us and the state.
Right, and even counties that were, you know, comparable to our size with our same prisoner load, so.
Kelly, comments on revenue so far?
Oh, it's just a really rough draft
Yeah,
to start with. I mean, I think that,
it's our beginning.
right, and I think it's a pretty good start.
Now, for me, I've not seen any major ups nor any major downs in revenues, just revenues. Have you seen any major bumps in revenue?
No, I haven't been told.
All right,
anything.
so 2 years ago, a little better, when we were working on the budget, that's when we made the remark in here, we're either gonna have to raise revenues or cut expenditures again. And that's when, I'm gonna say, we really got to work with Harley in his office, in the assessor's office, and worked on the pilot payments and the Act 9 bonds, and tried to organize and straighten out that whole process, and it's really made a big difference.
Much better.
Much, much better. I mean, we saw an immediate increase in revenues, and it wasn't that anybody paid anything new or different, it's just they started paying what was due. And just a reminder, one of those was one of the things that we found was Plum Point, the energy company down at Osceola. And it was under a pilot program agreement, and most of those pilot payments go through the cities, Osceola or Blytheville. The county can do them, but generally the cities issue those pilot agreements and Act 9 bonds. The way that works then, the corporation pays the city that designated payment of whatever it is, and then the city breaks it down to where it's supposed to go to, and then makes those checks. So with us, with Plum Point, we were supposed to get about $186,000 a year. And Osceola went through a little rough patch in their city government where they changed finance directors like 3 times in 18 months. And our check got dropped, and they went 4 years without paying. So when we figured that one out in Mr. Harley's office, and got with Mayor Kennemore, it was quite a sum of money, and they didn't have the cash on hand just to write the check. So we got an agreement with the city where they'd double pay us, and we're still in that process. So instead of and I'm not exactly right, but I'm really, really, really close at 186,000, and we'll get 2 of those again this year. And I don't think they paid those yet. Haven't seen them come through, have you?
I haven't, but I haven't talked to Peggy about it.
Yeah, I don't think those have come through yet. That's usually in October that happens. So that's given us a little bit of a bump. The Big River Steel came through for the first time. That just happened last month, actually. And you saw
There
it.
was down.
Sorry?
Harley went down there, picked it up,
Did he?
they called him.
I'm surprised he didn't call it.
I know it.
But anyway, so we're really seeing an improvement in our overall revenue structure because of the economic development tax and projects that we've done. The economic development half-cent sales tax is truly paying the county back now, and it's really helped us on our revenues. We'll look at those a little closer. Harley's also been under the weather, y'all. I mean, our 2 main elected officials that work on revenues are both been tied up with illnesses. And is Harley back in town yet?
He is.
Yeah, I spoke to him a little while ago.
Did you? Plus, Harley's had some foot issues, I think,
Mhm.
surgeries and such down in Texas. So I wish him well, but Kelly and I will be getting with Peggy as soon as she gets back. We'll put harder numbers to this. We'll do the same with Harley and looking for new numbers, what he's projecting. It falls on him just as much as on anybody to help us with these revenue projections. You know anything new coming down the line, Judge?
On revenues?
Yeah? Anything you're expecting big time or to happen or anything?
We've got a project in plan, but it won't happen I don't think it'll happen
2020 in time to impact us significantly.
not significantly.
Did the sheriff mention at one point that they may have changed the law to where they could hire a collection company to collect some of the old
I
fines?
think they can.
Was that, I know
Oh,
that he mentioned
Isn't that right,
And
Judge?
I've got the paperwork, yeah.
So, and there's about $9 million out there.
Do we need to do your resolution?
If that's what you want.
I'm just saying, there's always a little bit of money there, surely.
Yeah, what, 9 million, 10 million?
Something like
If you
that.
went back far enough.
I mean, even.
How much of that is
well, you-
collectible?
Well, but you think even one, 10% of it's $1 million.
New one? Oh, yeah.
So, 1%. I mean,
We'd take anything we could get, and I don't know how those collection agencies work. I wouldn't have a clue, but.
Well, and you know, my thoughts have always been, if you've got the power to put somebody in jail, I'm not sure how a collection agency would.
Gonna do any better?
But, you know, it's possible. I think it's been successful in other parts of the state.
Next week, we'll have harder revenue projections for you. We'll have some total numbers put together for you. Well,
I don't know. I can't get much harder than this
until we get Peggy back.
well, that, or, you know, I spend some individual time with some elected officials and know more about their, you know, their special revenue funds. Now, as far as county general, yeah, I say we're going to wait on Harley and Peggy.
We'll plan right now on meeting this time next week. I'm not done yet for the day, but just in talking about revenue, we'll plan on meeting this time next week. If those two elected officials stay unavailable, unintentionally unavailable, then they have to postpone. There's no reason in coming if we don't have our something. We do have one expenditure budget. Tom come in and thought his better half with him. His better work half.
Yeah, yeah. You've been accused of that.
Well, I got my work wife too. So, that's people we spend the most time with. They have brought us a expenditure projection worksheet. It's a small budget, and as long as they're here, you want to talk about it, Tom, and what we're looking at?
You want to go over?
You want to go over it with us?
Yeah.
We haven't projected an increase, but actually a decrease, especially when it comes to our budget. Page 1, when we talk about the election equipment and supplies. We went to a meeting with the state in August concerning the revenue that they were supposed to pour into the counties to buy election equipment. And they have approved us for $371,000.
No, $392,984.09.
Wait a minute.
He wants you to say that again. Say it again.
$392,984.09, which was supposed to be 74% of our requirement.
78%, yeah, 74% of our corporate requirement. Which, based on the projections that we have with ES&S, the county clerk, and Tom have gotten together, you know, and gone over the required equipment for the county. We're gonna be well within what the state is gonna be able to provide for us. And we're excited about that. So, under the equipment and supplies, we have reduced the amount in our budget by $100,000. We figured that we could operate well within what we requested and still not expand everything that we're asking for in that category, since we're going to be offset by whatever the state is willing to provide for us.
You know, when we made this projection for the 2019 budget, we were thinking we might have to come up with as much as 50% of it. And that's why we come up with the $236,000 that you see for the 2019 budget. And the state's up there from 50% up to 74% now. And there's where much better than we thought it was going to be.
They also said that if we could make any savings, that we would retain the savings.
So if they give us 392 and we spend 390,
yeah,
then we get to keep the 2,000.
yes. Melissa and I go on vacation. What? What? No, but we don't expect to have a huge
But
over.
anyway, we expect to be
We're right.
reduced
Keep
in
in
our
mind that
budget for
we're
that
in front
amount.
of the press and also going on
Yeah.
Facebook.
Yeah. And we're also going to have some additional cost involved in training and whatnot.
Right. I did want to ask coordinator wages.
We did not put in a 2020 request for coordinator wages because I wasn't really sure how we needed to do that. I'm currently budgeted for 26 hours a week. And next year is a very, very, very heavy year. And we're proposing new equipment, which means that we will have to train every member of our staff, poll workers. We need loaders, deliveries, maid. I'm not sure that 26 hours a week would be adequate for a heavy
You're
year.
not on salary, you're on
No, sir,
hourly,
hourly.
paid employee.
And so I spoke with Kelly and I told her, I don't know if there is a instance that you all have ever placed someone like every other year, that maybe just only during the heavy years, that my hours are increased and then I go back to where I am currently, since this is not a, you know, a general or primary year.
Right.
And I'm okay with that, I'm satisfied with that. I'm not asking, you know, to be overly paid, but I would like to be compensated for what I do.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think you'll be working.
18-hour days ought to be compensated.
Comments, Mr. Vittori?
Like 18-hour days should be compensated. And she's put them in several times.
You know, we watched this flip-flop, I'm talking about not y'all's flip-flopping, the way the election years flip-flop on us. And if you don't know that 2020 is going to be a big election year, you just don't watch TV or listen to the radio.
And one thing you know, but probably most of you don't know, we have an election going on right now in the county.
We do.
We're in Manila, yeah.
So we're working in Manila right now.
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow is
Tomorrow
election
is
day.
election day.
Yeah, I think they're doing the same thing over in Craighead County.
Mhm.
Anything else?
But that's all. That was my only proposal to kind of figure out how we want to do me every other year, or, you know, or how that works. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we increased a little bit of small equipment. We have to get a new computer. Our stuff is out of date.
Had to buy a printer, somebody did.
I did, but it was not compatible, so
Yeah, couldn't use it.
couldn't use it.
Really? When you bought that night?
Our equipment is too old, and we use Windows XP, and we have no computers that are on the economy right now that are compatible. You have to go back and get an ancient one.
With the printer that we have.
Just so y'all know about dedication, we were down at Burdette watching, Justice Burge and I watching them count the votes in our last big election, and the printer wouldn't work. And somebody jumped in their car and went to Walmart and bought one out of their own pocket. Asked Mr. Witoric if he would make sure she were compensated correctly.
She didn't want it.
I just use the printer, it's okay.
She used it.
Okay. When we look at these budgets, guys, these expenditure budgets, we collect them all, we get our revenues together, then we collect all the expenditure budgets, and we look at everybody's request, and then we go back through, compare them to the revenues, and then we start paring down and actually meeting them again. So you may be meeting with us again, but we accept your proposals, we'll look at them and give due consideration. If something comes up, either one of you can holler at us.
The one thing about revenues is we get reimbursed by the state for the primary elections. However, that reimbursement comes in really late, so we use we have expenditure there. We never show the revenues. So be sure you have a good swear.
Kelly, has any other elected official or anybody turned in any expenditures yet?
I've only received election and extension office.
Extension, yeah.
I just received that today.
You know, we could actually, if we don't have revenues, we could start, if anybody wanted to turn their expenditure budgets in, working on those next week, if you wanted to.
The health department wants to present their expenditures next week.
They do? Health Department?
I may have one other scheduled.
I will.
but-
You will? Would you do it next week? Sweet. I thought you might. Well, you're really good about that. And wanting to be right up front and on one of the first. You're wanting to get in there while we still got money.
Yes, smart woman.
You're wanting to get in there before Harley makes us mad, so.
You gonna do that?
Yes.
What about you, Susan? You got time to work
You'll
on
take
it,
a day
or?
off.
I have not had it. Our online payments though are, from when we started about mid-July through today is just a little over 45,000. And that's not counting penalties. I mean, not penalties, but the fee that the company. So I think that's good for, no longer than we've been doing that. We've had a few hiccups along the way, but we're getting it figured out.
In the fee part,
Mhm.
how much is that fee?
It's 2.85% with.
2.85?
Yeah, with a minimum of $2.
Do we keep any of that?
No.
All goes
Now,
to the,
INA also doesn't, that's the company that we use. They don't charge us to do that. So that's where they make their money, is on those fees.
so we're not out any money?
No, we're not out
But
anymore.
we're not making any money, and it does provide an online service for the people that want to
Yes.
utilize it.
And there's several times, well, just last week I collected back like 8 years of drainage taxes. You know, when people were due from the state, then they'll go in and pay their delinquent drainage and levy. Whereas a lot of times they'll just let that go, and if they sell it, and it goes to the next, and they, you know, it just keeps building up. But there's several that I've collected, you know, 6 to 8 years of back drainage tax.
You know, one of the common gripes I get as far as Mississippi County goes is our lack of available services online. And for instance, like being able to assess or check our assessment, and then, you know, previously being able to pay our taxes.
Right.
The other day I bought a car, and I needed to get a proof of assessment and then proof of payment of taxes. Can you get proof of payment of taxes online now?
You could probably go in and copy your receipt, get a copy of your 17-year receipt.
Just from my home computer or something?
I would
I'm
think
just
so.
being-
I'll have to look. I mean, I haven't really looked at that, but I would think that you could.
You gotta have it.
Yeah. Now, there's, if you want to go back further than 17, I don't think you can. I don't think you could go back. If it was paid on time, I don't think you could go back further than 17.
But when you say that was one of the vehicle purchases, as much as anything, would be one of your bigger foot traffic
Yes.
issues, people coming in the door?
Mhm. To get after they've done their assessment, to get their tax claim.
All right, now, with that said, how has the move to Burdette?
It really hasn't made much difference. I mean, people fuss, but you know, that's normal. Our office tries to have a really good atmosphere for you to come into, and the office that they go to prior to us, oh, we've had so many complaints. So many complaints.
But as far as people finding you,
It's still a little difficult because we don't have our signage up yet out there. I'm sure John's got that coming in.
I do.
Yeah, and as soon as that's done, then I don't think there'll be any trouble at all. And you know, it's not far. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to drive to Burdette every day, but, you know, it's no further than driving from here to Dale or to Jonesboro to eat. You know?
not near that far.
No, not near that far.
I think it's 7 miles.
It's 17 miles from my house, which I live way out, almost to the Missouri line, to the Burdette, to the driveway out there.
Well, how many miles was it for you to just get to the regular courthouse?
About 10.
So it's another seven
Yeah.
miles, 7 additional
But
miles.
it's fast
each
miles.
way.
That's exactly right.
It looks like you got plenty of space.
Yeah, we do. I really like the space. I really like the
How
space.
fast are you going, Miss Angie?
Tell you something, that brings up another issue with this Osceola court, or that courthouse, that I want y'all to consider. We don't have to make a
Oh, from
decision
60
right
grams
now.
to Bourbon.
And I'm not sure what we did the other day either. We've got most offices that are out there, and then we've got circuit clerk's office, all right? We don't pay you mileage to drive to work out there,
No.
correct? Or any of the people that work for you.
That's correct. We do now.
We don't for any other office either. Circuit clerk has asked, could they draw mileage when they go from office here to the courthouse?
Well, that was one of the questions that I asked when she said she was concerned, was, well, we have to pay mileage for.
That's her office out there.
Huh?
I mean, that's a part of her office. That's where her office should be. in my opinion, of course, you know, I ain't
I just
about
want y'all to
that.
think about that.
I thought about it.
You have thought about it?
Oh, yeah.
And the answer would be,
No, no.
But it'd be 2 letters instead of 3.
all right, enough said with that. Judge, any thoughts? Any thoughts? I just wanted to just really briefly go over these revenues right quick, let everybody see where we were gonna be in the process, and trying to buy a little time for both Peggy and Harley, just a little bit to get sick ones taken care of, and you know, before we get real hard numbers, but also offer an opportunity for any elected official that wanted to put their numbers together on budgets. We'll go ahead and start looking at some of those next week also. But you got any thoughts in general?
Yeah, what I would like to do is put in place a series of funds for the treasurer's office and transfer some money annually that would go into a lot of our real property, like and you and I spoke with this earlier, like the health units, for example. Either the building as a whole, or a roof fund, or a HVAC fund, and let's go ahead and get in front of some of the problems that may occur or that will occur in future years, such as if we know that we're going to need to plan on an HVAC unit in, say, 5 years, and we get the cost down on what it may end up to be, and we divide that by 5, and we go ahead and fund some of these accounts, then we'll be prepared to meet some of these obligations when they get here, and we'll already have them funded.
A lot of what he's talking about is extraneous, outside the courthouse county properties. We own and maintain properties that aren't necessarily courthouse.
Right.
The
Well,
thing
and
that
even-
started this thought process was the health unit.
That's right. When it came up that we were behind and we needed to update those buildings, then we won't just be hit with this astronomical figure and then try to meet that obligation, because we know all those things are coming. And even the current courthouses, and let's just say the new addition that's going to be at Blyville, when we install the HVACs, if we could project how long that they are gonna last, and I think that the paperwork comes with it will tell us. And then we estimate what that number will be and go ahead and start setting that money aside.
Where do you recommend, or where would you like to see those funds? What section of the budget? Have you thought about
I
that?
haven't gotten that far. In fact, I was trying to draw it up over this weekend, and I'll go ahead and continue my efforts, but just an idea. Just like we were given a road, a highway a couple of years ago, and it is in terrible shape, and it was going to be an astronomical amount of money that the county wasn't prepared for. With the help of John David and JT out there and working with the industries that it goes alongside, we were able to meet that obligation this year, at least to get us another 18 months, and I think we used some state aid to finish it out. But we were also given last year or the year before another section of highway that begins right there at 18 and Armorel, the road that goes through it, and goes all the way north to the other highway. And I forget how many miles. Do you remember?
It's a bunch. It's from Armorel
Say
to
5
Hickman
miles.
Road. 5 miles.
And the state is going to overlay that before they finalize it and give it to us. But that is another one. Of course, that's the road department. But that's another one that it would be impossible to meet in 1 year if we have to go back in. So I think the only reasonable way to do it is, and this will be coming from the road fund though, is set aside some money each year, try to figure out when it is going to need some additional maintenance, and we'd be prepared to meet that challenge.
Have you figured out yet how many dollars of budgets you have to work with?
It's
Between the road department and the landfill and courthouse budget and...
keeps me up at night.
Welcome, county judge.
But everything is running all right now. We're running 18% under budget on the road department as well as the landfill. Those are round numbers, but I figured at the road department the other night, if we maintain what we're doing right now through the end of the year, we'll be able to add considerably to our reserves.
We need to move in that positive direction as much as we can still.
Yes, we do, because, you know, at the end of the day, out of all the problems that we have here, if we maintain our reserves and increase them, well, then we can meet the challenges. But once we get behind, as you mentioned earlier about the hospitals, it is very hard to crawl out of it.
It takes a long time, and everybody suffers.
That's right, because it would, going into making the next year's budget without any reserves and getting the 90% rule, not only puts us in a very difficult shape building the numbers, but the cash flow at the beginning of the year is always a challenge. So, I mean, it's imperative that we retain those reserves and increase them.
You know, guys, one thing that we haven't done in giving direction to the elected officials and various department heads in trying to build their new 2020 budget, we've not given them any direction regarding salaries, raises, bonuses, or anything else. And it's nothing that we have to be committed to. In the past, we pretty well let them carry their salaries and personal services straight across, and then we have gone in and added to percentages or across-the-board bonuses to see what our possibilities were. Janice, you got a thought on that? And how to approach it?
I'd like, can I add 3% just in case?
Give it to us both ways,
Okay,
if you'd like.
okay.
Let me ask you something. While I got you talking, you don't talk a lot.
It's only in here, she don't talk much.
I value your opinion.
But she can, though.
Yeah.
If, and I don't, we have to look at our revenues, and we're not gonna bust ourselves, if we're able to do something for our county employees.
Yes, sir.
Percentages versus across the board.
The across the board was much better, and I think they saw more of a change with the across the board.
Good answer. Political. Well, actually,
You
the
know, it was
across,
an immediate, they immediately saw it, whereas at 3%, it was a small here, 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 and I think I don't know, but they just thought it was so much more.
Well, across the board, I'm not advocating it, but it's been proven, but across the board, decreases the gap between the lower spectrum and the upper spectrum. If you give percentage raises, that gap continues to widen all the time. Across the board actually narrows it. So it's just which way you want to go.
Yeah, so depending on which way you look at it, right, some people would get much more than a 3%, and some people won't even get a 3%,
Right.
just depending on which you already make.
Those on the lower end, it will probably be more than a 3%. But it keeps the gap from widening.
I know they saw more of a difference in their check
Yes.
with the across the board than they did with 3%, and that's why they liked it.
And what's more important than that right now is if they have any changes in personnel, that needs to be done immediately, so we can get it through committee, get it, all that stuff, so upgrades, downgrades,
Yeah.
change position.
and again, upgrading the job descriptions if any elected official or department head cares to or needs to. Yeah, you're exactly right.
And the closer we're moving toward JSAT, your midpoint, you know, that'll change. And we've made great strides this year.
We've made great strides. The last 18 months, we've made really big strides, and I'd like to see those continue. So I guess in general, the direction is let them figure, do like you'd like, Janice. If you want to give us a separate column of 3%, let's, for the most part, y'all figure the straight across, and then we'll figure how we can how we can work the personal bonuses in there. Is that okay? Is it okay with you two?
For me,
You're elected too?
I know.
Full time?
Now, he said bonuses, did you mean that?
No. Raises. Don't mean bonuses. Not raises.
So if
Bonuses
we
are-
give the raises, does that, negate bonuses? Cause they're gonna want the bonus rather than the raise, I think.
Well, when we gave the raises this last year, if you remember during this process last year, we got leaned on really hard to do both. Because we'd given an across-the-board raise, then we were looking at another across-the-board raise, and Judge Brassfield at that time was working with the employees, and they really asked us, leaned hard on us for a bonus last year. I don't see us doing that again this year if we give another decent across-the-board raise.
Okay.
We've just done really, really well for our employees with $2,500 in the last 2 years. And if we do something kind of along the line, I just don't think we can afford to do both. Even though we did last year, I just don't think we can continue to do that. So I wouldn't be banking on a bonus. I'd be banking and hoping for a decent raise again.
If I remember correctly, to do both, it's almost $500,000.
It is $500,000. You have to do both. The one's non-committal, but that $250,000 that we're looking at on raises is forever.
You know, one reason I really like those bonuses is because they end up with a lump sum
Exactly.
at the end of every year. Is it possible that we
Do it like a bonus, pay it like a bonus, but make it a raise?
well, make it a part of their salary that just comes due at the end of the year? Is that possible to do something like that?
I don't know. I mean, I can ask about that. It's just you get into people terminating and leaving, and it's probably gonna be.
Well, I mean, there might be we might be able to meet those challenges with just keeping up with it, and if they do terminate.
Might be something we could look at and explore. It's almost like a Christmas club.
This would be like a Christmas club.
You're gonna have some people that want it now, you're gonna have some people that, you know, it needs to be where they don't have a choice.
But you couldn't give them all of it because you'd be paying them in advance.
I'm talking about people might want it now added to their check versus going into a Christmas club or
Yeah,
whatever.
no, we need to do it one way or the other.
One way or the other.
Okay.
It's like a guaranteed bonus kind of type thing.
Bonuses are.
Well, it'd be,
It's a withholding kind of a.
Yeah,
yeah. Paycheck withholding.
yeah.
In fact, it'd almost be better to do it like that. I'd just set up some kind of Christmas club slot as a withholding thing so that they could draw it out. Of course, we give them a good enough raise, they could open a Christmas club at the bank and be the same
If they
thing.
would.
Then we wouldn't have to do that. Guys, I'm done. Anybody got anything? All right. Janice will do us next week. The health department will do it. I wonder if we couldn't ask David Lindy to maybe try to have his done, some of the small ones.
What about Wayne too?
Wayne too. Y'all know Wayne too?
Wayne also.
Yeah, Wayne would be another good one to do and knock out.
Short.
Yeah, okay. Guys, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.